So, let's move on to the Ukrainian crisis. On June 6th, as a result of targeted shelling by Ukraine, the dam of the Kakhovskaya HPP was destroyed, causing an uncontrolled discharge of water from the reservoir and large-scale flooding of settlements and territories downstream of the Dnipro, up to the Black Sea. This is a deliberate sabotage of the Kyiv regime. I want to draw your attention to the fact that, of course, as you know, our law enforcement agencies are investigating and a criminal case has been initiated, and all the necessary assessments will be given to this. Now what we are talking about, of course, is a political assessment based on the available facts. Therefore, I will emphasize again, yes, of course, this is a deliberate and purposeful destruction of civilian infrastructure in order to harm the civilian population. Of course, this is a terrorist act. The investigation will additionally establish all the circumstances in this case, and this will be given a clear, final and summarizing assessment, but, at the moment, everything fits the description of this situation. This is terrorism, this is extremism, this is sabotage. So, this deliberate action of the Kyiv regime was planned by it in advance. Over the past month, the water level in the Kakhovka reservoir has been artificially raised from 14 to 17.5 meters. This is indicated by the French hydrological portal. No, this is not the hand of the Kremlin. These are the Western monitoring structures that the West should trust. Immediately on the eve of the attack, the Kyiv authorities gave the command to start additional discharge of water from the Dnipro HPP, located upstream of the river. As a result, even 10 hours after the dam was blown up, the water level in the reservoir did not decrease, but even grew. In this context, the statements of the Ukrainian General Kovalchuk, made by him in an interview with the Washington Post on December 29, 2022, are indicative. The Russian permanent representative to the United Nations, Mr. Nebenzia, has already spoken about this. Ukrainian General Kovalchuk said that even then Ukraine delivered, now a direct quote, a test strike from the American HIMARS multiple launch rocket system on one of the locks of the Kakhovka Dam to make a hole in it and see how much the water would rise in the Dnipro. I now have a question. John Kirby, Karine Jean-Pierre, and all the people who are in charge of communications in the White House and the State Department, please tell me, this directly concerns you, and you are obliged to respond. Did you know about it? Did you know how American weapons are used? Did you know how the weapons that are supplied to the territory of Ukraine with the money of American taxpayers are used? Did you know that similar tests are being carried out with American weapons to commit a terrorist attack against civilian infrastructure in third countries? It's impossible not to notice. This was printed by an American newspaper 6 months ago. All the talk about the lack of information in the White House raises questions, in principle, about mental health. If American newspapers and American journalists publish and print materials that are not read in the White House and cannot be compared with the facts, then, indeed, it seems to me that it is time to call the orderlies. I'll say it again. These are the questions that we directly raise in the public space before the White House. You are required to answer them. Further, the current next terrorist attack of the Kyiv regime has already led to an environmental and humanitarian catastrophe. Dozens of settlements have been flooded. The Kakhovskaya Reservoir and the North Crimean Canal, which supplies water to the Crimean Peninsula, are becoming shallow. Huge damage will be done to agricultural lands, nature reserves and the entire ecosystem of the region. And now the second question, just as direct. Did it just start yesterday? Didn't the White House, the State Department, the European Union, NATO, the Council of Europe, the OSCE, and all other organizations that care so much for the Kiev regime know that its representatives are engaged in sabotage against civilian infrastructure, including cutting off water for Crimea for many years? Didn't they know that power lines were being mined? Didn't they know that the main target of the multi-year strikes against Donbass's civilian infrastructure? The answer is, they knew about it, but the question remains, if they knew, then on what basis did they not just keep silent for many years, but encourage the Kiev regime to commit such acts of terrorism? The Kiev regime and its Western masters were clearly intent on creating problems for Russia's Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. Well, they are great. I understand very well that the educational level of the majority of the population in the United States of America is so low that they can be sold this story as well, as the White House is doing now, and as the State Department is doing. In principle, the European Union and NATO are not far behind, even though they are located on the European continent. There is only a small detail. This is a nuclear power plant. It is no longer possible to build a dam here. It is no longer possible to come up with some kind of protective cover or something like that. No, it will happen, if it happens, lightning fast, and it will cover everyone. After all, a drop in the water level can jeopardize the operation of the cooling system for the reactors of the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. And what happens then? Unfortunately, we all know very well. The terrorist attack also pursued obvious military goals, which the leadership of the Ministry of Defense of our country spoke about yesterday. This is to prepare conditions for Ukraine to force the shallow Dnipro in order to strike in the Azov direction as part of the notorious counteroffensive, which is clearly stalling, despite the large-scale military assistance of the United States and their NATO allies. Additionally, today we will also pay attention to this topic. We call on the international community to condemn this yet another barbaric crime of the Ukrainian military and all those who sponsored it for many years. All this clearly demonstrates the terrorist and extremist nature of Zelensky and his handlers from Washington. They also destroy monuments. They also destroy everything that does not fit into their narrow view of the world. In general, they only know how to destroy. This is the only thing they have been taught all these years with American money.